What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank you so very much for being here. Appreciate you looking out. This is an interesting one because, so before we look at the astrology of the week ahead, we should probably look back a little bit because some interesting shit has gone down, and we should think about that a little bit. Because if you had, at this time last week, if you had asked me what transit is going to be the one under which Donald Trump bombs Iran, I would not have said the moon conjunct Venus in Taurus. I would have said moon conjunct Venus in Taurus is likely to be delicious. It's likely to be very good for arts and this kind of thing. I would not have said anything about new wars or being aggressive or something like that. And I would have been wrong. And the thing is, like, this is all present in the astrology. It's all like, I could have made that prediction. I simply would not have, because I, like a lot of people, sometimes pigeonhole Venus into this place of things that are delicious or fun or feel good in some kind of way. When in fact, Venus has been a war goddess for as long as long as Venus has been on the scene. People have associated Venus with not only love and sex and harmony and stuff like that, but also with war, with the sort of like Amazon figure, the one who's like out here taking names about it. You know what I mean? Especially when Venus is far ahead of the sun in the way that she is right now. So that is to say that Venus is rising at something like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that, whereas the sun is rising at like 5:30 in the morning or something like this. And so Venus is, and that's what happens. That's just the part of the synodic cycle that we're in. We had a big Venus retrograde earlier a few months ago, and so what happens then is Venus is behind the sun at the moment of the retrograde, and then moves around, goes underneath the beams of the sun, and then ends up on the other side, and then sort of like starts the whole cycle over again, and starts out in this place where, so anytime there's a planet that is ahead of the sun, then it is likely to be a little more aggressive, a little more like putting itself out there and ready to sort of get something going. And so Venus, being sometimes a war goddess, being, you know, in Taurus, we might think about Venus. So Venus rules this place in Taurus, right? So Venus is very strong here, but also might be a little bit sort of obstinate, might be a little stubborn, a little unwilling to see another perspective or something like that, because I already know what's going to be delicious here. I am well established in my ways here, right? And so there's this sense that that Venus in Taurus is very strongly able to do the thing that it wants to do. And desire is a really strong component of the way that Venus likes to operate. And so if there is a desire to get moving on something and to make something warlike happen, then a morning time Venus, sometimes called the morning star, this is great for that kind of thing. And actually, now that I say the word morning star out loud, I can recall that in some indigenous ways of thinking, the morning star, which almost every time you see morning star written out that way, then it almost always refers to Venus in this position, in this moment in the synodic cycle. That is a war-making aspect. And so that is something that, you know, and I also, so I teach this course, Astrology from the Ground Up, which is available on my website. And I realize now that I'm like taking an L in front of everyone. And so maybe you don't want to learn astrology from me. But the blueprint, I think, still works. You just have to be like a little smarter than I have been recently, which honestly, for most folks, shouldn't be that hard. But in that, one of the things that I said, and one of the principles that I always go back to is let the astrology show you what the astrology is, rather than prescriptive notions of what I think it is already. So there's, so if I were to meet somebody with a certain placement, let's say Venus in Taurus, rather than saying, oh, because you have Venus in Taurus, I think that you're going to be these and those things. Rather than doing that, a better move is to be like, okay, so this person has Venus in Taurus. Let me observe. Let me pursue a relationship with this person. Let me hang out with this person for a little while and let them show me what their placements actually are, what their placements actually look like. And so that is, you know, and that's part of the fun of like the predictive mode that I'm in here, you know, like, so I do these weekly forecasts and daily forecasts and stuff like that. I make predictions so that I can look at what actually happens and compare the data against what my prediction was and improve my predictive model as a result of that. And so that's what happened here is like, I would not have, now no one asked me this question, but I certainly would not have predicted that bombs dropping would have happened under the moon conjunct Venus in Taurus. But here we are. So this is interesting, and I'm going to need to update my predictive model in order to accommodate that. Of course, if you want to learn about astrology using astrology from the ground up, or if you want me to do a reading for you to help you to understand where you are in your life or some of your talents and weaknesses and the things that you can do to strategize around the situations in your life, you can go to zambonifunk.com and check that sort of stuff out. You know, the other thing that is happening in this moment, you know, the other war-making planet is Mars for the most part, right? And so Mars has moved into Virgo, and I honestly like Mars in Virgo a lot. Mars is pretty effective there. It's pretty, there's a kind of precision, and that can be really helpful for actually getting things done, or for actually, you know, hitting the target that you aimed at, which is a big deal for Mars. Mars cares a lot about hitting that target, right? And so Mars in Virgo is very good for that kind of precision and accuracy. So I honestly really like this Mars, especially since this week we can see that Mars in Virgo is going to make a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer as well. And so, you know, this is another one of the things that, like, I probably could have looked at it and seen some war-making stuff going on here. The exact aspect is going to be this week, but that's been applying for a few days now. And so, you know, whenever you see Mars and Jupiter working together, especially in a complementary sextile aspect like this one, or a trine or a conjunction or something like this, any kind of any way where these two are working together, then basically you're going to see Jupiter saying yes to Mars. And so that's going to be good for the war making and this kind of thing. So, you know, if you were going to drop a bomb on a neighboring country or something like that, then this would be good for that. But, you know, that's not the kind of people who tend to watch this forecast. For regular folks like us, this can be a moment to say yes to Mars, to do a good job doing the thing. Now is a good time to make your move. Try to do something, especially something where you are sure about what your desire is, because your Venus and Taurus situation is happening in a big way. You're feeling big feelings about how you want the world to actually go, and actually push it in that direction. Try to make that shit happen. This is a really good time for that kind of thing. Especially since this week also we've got the new moon in Cancer. This new moon in Cancer is going to be conjunct Jupiter there in Cancer. This is very good for nourishing things. This is very good. So new moon is always going to be a seed planting moment, right? It is not the moment when you bear fruit. It is the moment when you plant the seed. There's a bit of darkness that comes after that, and there's a sense of like, okay, did I do it right? Are there going to be some shoots and this kind of thing, right? So if you are ready to look into your heart for what you actually want, Venus and Taurus is a great time to be doing that kind of thing and feeling into that, like, oh, I actually love the way that this thing feels, maybe I want more of this or something like that. And then you have that desire, you aim at that desire, and then decide, okay, I'm going to begin a campaign, plant the seed on a campaign to get something done. It's a great week for that kind of thing. The new moon in Cancer is going to be really good for making that happen, especially where you know, it's also square to Saturn and Aries. So be aware of the boundaries and rules, and use those boundaries and rules toward your own advantage. Don't try to thwart them, but look at where the loopholes are and maybe get in there. There's good week for strategy this week.